Warren, your approach seems so simple. Why doesn't everybody do it?
Well, I think partly because it is so simple.
The approach that Warren Buffett is talking about here is one that's allowed him to become the 5th richest person in the world with a total net worth of $112.8 billion at the time of this video. However, while many may say that it's his investing wit that's made him millions, it's not entirely the case. I've taken the time to study Warren Buffett and how he lives on a day-to-day and found something shocking. There are 3 frugal living habits that have allowed Warren Buffett to truly get rich and can help you do the same. And it all starts with number 1, forming healthy money habits. Well, isn't it obvious? Yeah, it is, but if it's so obvious, then why aren't most people doing it? Just like in the intro clip we showed, part of the reason why we can't do the obvious is it's actually a little too obvious. We're creatures of habit. And we are also creatures who enjoy stimulation and movement. Unfortunately, this part of us is getting even more exposed to the rise of social media and instant gratification. To make matters worse, we don't even notice how much our inability to sit still starts eating away at our money little by little. Look at this Warren Buffett quote for example. Most behavior is habitual, and they say that the chains of habit are too tight to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. If we go off what he said, then if you let yourself build behaviors that aren't good for your growing wealth, then before you know it, those habits will be holding you further and further back from achieving your goals. On the flip side, if you build good behaviors that are good for growing wealth, then you'll be rich in no time, right? Well, there's a little more to it than that. The question is, where do you even start with building good money habits? Well, let's start with habit number 1. One of the easiest ways to get started with forming good money habits is to make a budget. This old method is still one of the most reliable methods anyone can use to get rich. Simply put, all you need to do is dictate how much money you're willing to spend every month and make sure that it's below what you earn. Easy enough. But a budget isn't the only habit that you'll need to build wealth. An expense you'll likely find on your bank statements, along with 77% of Americans, is ruining your ability to get rich, and it's absolutely vital to lower this to 0 if you want any hope of getting rich. If you haven't guessed it yet, it's debt. Debt is essentially a guaranteed way to get one of the best returns on your money that you'll likely never see in your life. Don't believe me? Then check out this clip.
I think people should avoid using credit cards as a piggy bank to be rated. I don't know how to make 18%. I mean, if I owed any money at 18%, the first thing I do with any money I had would be to pay it off. It's going to be way better than any investment idea I've got.
So, you've cleared your debt and you feel a whole lot richer. Good for you. But there's something to be cautious about here that can bring you right back to the chains of debt if you're not careful. This little thing sits in your wallet and is most likely saved on your computer for stores you frequent. The more you use this thing, the more you fall into debt without even realizing it. However, avoiding its use can help you keep your riches and stay out of debt. In other words, avoid using your credit card and use cash. Warren Buffett uses cash for 98% of his purchases, partially because it's easier for him, but mostly because it helps him stay out of debt. In fact, he always carries $400 to $500 in his wallet. Money is really easy to spend, and even if you stick to using cash as much as possible, you can easily fall into overspending on stuff you don't need. This is a money habit that you really don't want to fall into. Fortunately, there's a way around this, and that's living below your means. This is easier said than done, but it doesn't have to be. It can be just as easy if you stick to the rules and are disciplined. The simplest way to do this will be explained later in the video, so stick around. What else can there be if you've budgeted your money, paid off your debt, prevented yourself from gaining debt, and you live below your means? You'll certainly get rich this way, right? This is a hard truth for people to bear. It's the knowledge that saving money isn't enough to get wealthy. Chances are you won't even retire if you just save your money. There's one thing you need to do if you're looking to build wealth and form proper money habits, and that's what Warren Buffett is an expert at. That's right, it's investing. You need to invest your money if you want to get rich, and that's where the second important frugal living habit comes into play.
It's better to be saving 10% of your income instead of 5% of your income. I think it's crazy to be spending 105% of your income, and I think that leads to all kinds of problems.
The second habit that's made Buffett a multi-billionaire is saving money. But as I said before, saving money isn't enough to get you wealthy. However, it's a necessary habit that'll help you build your wealth. Don't save what is left after spending. Spend what is left after saving. This quote from Warren Buffett tells you about the masterful art of paying yourself first, and it's something that's easily overlooked by most people. Saving should be your main priority, just as much as paying your bills. The big problem comes from one little thing, and this thing has basically made more and more Americans have to retire later and not be able to at all. The little problem is that saving is voluntary. Since we don't have to save, most of us won't save. We'll choose to use it for something in the moment. But if it's at the cost of losing your retirement and really enjoying your life, will you still neglect it? I may have convinced you now, but there's another problem. How do you divide your savings so you can grow wealth and protect yourself from emergencies? There are just so many amazing ways to divide your savings, and it really depends on who you are, what your goals are, and how much you can put aside. As a starting point, dividing your money into 3 groups can help you figure out what works. For example, using that 75-15-10 rule. This rule divides 75% of your income for expenses, 15% for investing, and 10% for savings. There's something here that's standing out like a sore thumb. Can you guess what it is? Why are saving and investing split? Well, here's the thing. Saving money is not done to get your wealth. It's to prevent you from getting poor. This money is your emergency money and will protect you from unwanted happenings like health issues, losing your job, or other costly emergencies. You'll want to build this account up to have at least 3 to 6 months of your expenses. There's one thing I want you to do though, and that's to make sure that it's in a separate account and set up with automatic transfers. This way, it's guaranteed you're saving your money and not spending it. As for investing, the most reliable and simple form to get started is to put 15% of your income into an index fund through a well-known method. This method makes sure that you're always putting money in. Make sure you have automatic transfers for this too, so that your money can work for you. This method is known as dollar cost averaging, which means that you put money into the market at regular intervals. With these 2 habits formed, you can set yourself up for success by constantly practicing this last and most important habit. Let's take a look at this clip and try to guess what the habit is.
Warren lives in the same house he bought for a very modest price, what, in 1950 something?
I bought it in 1958, and you moved into yours about 1960, didn't you?
Yeah, and I paid more.
This speaks volumes about the importance of frugality in Warren Buffett's life and how it's allowed him to become rich. This habit also allowed him to keep all the things he loved without having to sell them. If you buy things you don't need, you will soon sell things you need. This famous quote by Buffett tells us that you need to manage what you buy, which is the 3rd habit. So Buffett owns his first home, but what else? He also drives a used car, doesn't buy brand name suits, and eats extremely cheap meals at McDonald's. His life is ingrained with frugality. Some of you probably think he's lying, but listen to this.
I'd be happy with, certainly with $100,000 a year, I could be very happy.
The funny thing is that he spends money like he lives on $100,000 a year. But it seems to be that he acts like he lives on even less. But how can you form this habit so that you can not only be happy on a low income, but also grow your wealth? The biggest thing to do is to filter out the items you're buying. In other words, you need to understand the difference between a want and a need. Not surprisingly, the line between them is very fine and often overlaps. For instance, you need a phone both for work and daily life. This is a need. However, getting the latest iPhone is a want. Another example of a need is shoes to go outside every day, but getting a pair of designer shoes is a want. Can you see where the line is? You start associating wants with needs because you need the fundamental nature of the item. but the desire to want the most amazing type of the item gets in the mix. I'm going to show you the simplest way to properly filter this out with a technique that Warren Buffett uses when picking stocks. When Warren Buffett picks stocks, he always chooses them on the basis that they're valued less than they should be, that they have good business practices, and that he understands what they do and where they'll be in 10 years. To relate this to managing your buys, you want to pick items that are discounted or a low price, of great quality, and that they'll be functional for several years. Often, we'll pick based on the last 2 points, but not the first. It's tough to find good items for cheap, so there are a few things you can do. The first is to check out if you can even afford it. A way to test this is if you can buy at least 3 of the same item right now. If you can't, then you should save up your money before you buy it to avoid debt. Another useful method is a time filter. Whenever you feel an impulse to buy something, make sure to wait at least 1 to 3 days before. You'll likely find that impulse desires go away very quickly, and you forget about them in less than 24 hours. Warren Buffett's ability to manage what he buys is what allowed him to not only become the best investor in the world, but also keep his money and build wealth like never before.